What is going on, everyone? Riddick here, and this is the Extreme Rules results for October 9th, 2022. What is going on? We're going to get right into it on a night where Bray Wyatt makes his epic return, and I mean epic like no other. Very few wrestlers garner this type of reaction when they return, and quite honestly, if they're not bolting the roof back onto the place today, then something's wrong, because that roof definitely came off the place for the return of Bray Wyatt. Now, the question was, what kind of Bray Wyatt were we going to get? Were we going to get Eater of Worlds? Were we going to get Funhouse Bray? Or were we going to get The Fiend? Or something completely different? Or a mix of old and new? And we're going to get into it. Don't worry. But we're going to run through the matches first and what I thought about the show. I thought the show was really good. It had, some ups and downs, okay? It's not a perfect show. It's not always going to be a perfect show. It's just the way life goes. But overall, I thought it was a really good show. And, of course, capped off by that epic return of Bray Wyatt. So, to start the show off, we started off with the good old-fashioned Donnybrook match with Imperium versus the Brawling Brutes. Now, I said in my predictions, I felt like the Brawling Brutes could get the victory here because, obviously, we weren't going to have Sheamus win the Intercontinental title on Smackdown. That just wasn't going to happen. And still, that was a great match, and of course ended with a little controversy so that they can run it back again down the road. Hopefully at WrestleMania. I don't know how they get there, considering we have a pretty big gap still. But, I mean, it could be done, possibly, right? We'll see. I'm sure Triple H has some ways to get there and get around it. But, needless to say, we had the match. This match was, once again, a certified banger, as Sheamus likes to say. And the Brawling Brutes pull out the victory over Imperium. And that was definitely the move. And it was a banger of a match. I mean, they had all the little props out there, like a big bar table and big beer drums and shillelaghs everywhere and all kinds of stuff. And they beat the ever-living hell out of each other. Very, very good match. Excellent match, really. A 6-man tornado tag, of course. And the Brawling Brutes get the victory, so at least in that prediction, I got that one right? But still, the right team won here. They needed a big win, especially as, when the Imperium finally came back together, at Clash at the Castle. It really lifted the Brutes into this huge babyface team, where before they were kind of being the heel, but man, it just naturally and organically shifted them to one of the top babyface groups in the company, honestly. I mean, the reactions they're getting is pretty crazy. So, yeah, the Brawling Brutes, they get the victory, and I think that was definitely the move. Next up, we had the Ronda Rousey versus Liv Morgan Extreme Rules match for the WWE Smackdown Women's title. Now, here's where it gets a little rough. I mean, Ronda Rousey's Ronda Rousey. She can wrestle, but her style is kind of awkward. I don't mean that necessarily in a bad way, but it could be viewed as a bad thing because it's not really, I don't know, it's just like an awkward style she has. Of course, she's utilizing her martial arts training, and that works, but it's kind of weird. It's kind of weird when you mix it with, like, Liv Morgan, who she isn't a top-level performer. I like Liv, and I'm all about, like, building her up and pushing her and giving her time to grow, and she has grown quite a bit. But she's not really a top-level performer to where she can just, call a match and run a match, and Ronda and her can figure these things out, because there was some miscommunication, it seemed like, throughout this match. There were some hiccups. There was a little bit of maybe the nervousness was playing into it. I have no idea. But there was definitely some hiccups going on. And it just made the match a little bit rough around the edges, okay? It was still not bad, I guess, but it wasn't great. And it wasn't, I don't know, it was kind of middle of the road. You could take it any way you want. You could say, yeah, that wasn't good. Or you could say, it did its job. I'm personally on the middle of the road going down toward not good. There were moments that were cool, like when Liv, put her through the table and things like that. But for the overall match, it was I just like to say it's rough around the edges. That's what I like to say. So, Ronda Rousey gets the victory here. She is your new WWE SmackDown Women's Champion. And in the midst of this, while she's putting on this, she went into a whole different, bunch of holds on Liv to get her to submit after they, caused chaos around the ring. And she got her into one of these submissions, and she was, pushing her face into the edge of one of the broken table pieces while she was doing it, and Liv's just smiling like she enjoys the pain, and then Liv passes out, and then that's how she loses the title. So they're, clearly doing some sort of weird, crazy gimmick for Liv. I don't know what's going on there. There was a backstage digital-only exclusive segment where she's, in a dark room and laughing and not saying anything and just being all weird and psycho. Maybe she joins Bray Wyatt. I have no idea. But another one of the problems with this match is they had the bat. The bat was a big thing in the story of the match. And neither one of them are swinging this bat like they mean to hit the other person. And you knew it's not a real bat. It was clearly, a plastic bat dressed up to look real, because they did, at some points actually really tag each other with it. And if that was a real bat, you would have, at one point Ronda was going crazy with it, and I noticed it hit Liv's wrist. If that was a real bat, the wrist would have been broke right away, as hard as she hit her in the wrist with it. But as hard as she hit her in the wrist with it didn't translate to the other hits, because the other hits, they're daintily hitting each other with it, which is, I'm like, oh my God. Just hit each other with the damn thing. It's got to be, it's not a real bat. It's plastic. It's made to look like it's real, of course. But why not just go and just start hitting each other? Hit. They weren't doing that. They were giving the old, at least give me a full swing, back and boom. But they were just kind of, I don't know. Like I said, rough around the edges. But Ronda Rousey's your new WWE SmackDown Women's Champion. Up next, we have Karrion Kross versus Drew McIntyre in a strap match. This strap match does not have the typical rules of a strap match where you touch all four corners. This one had the rules of pinfall or submission. So, normal match, just linked up with a strap. Okay? And so, we get Drew comes out first, and then Karrion Kross comes out with Scarlett, of course. They get in the ring. Drew takes the strap and links it up to his wrist. And then he throws the other end over to Kross. Kross picks it up like he's going to link it up. And he throws it down, says, nah, I ain't putting this on. Of course, referee Jessica Carr tries to make him put it on, and he throws it down again. And then he ends up just attacking Drew and starts to lay waste to him all over the place. They go out of the ring, they're going up and through the crowd, and they're beating the hell out of each other all through the crowd. Match has not started because the bell hasn't rung. He hasn't linked up to the strap on his wrist, right? So they're fighting all through the crowd, brawling all over the place, and then eventually they come back to the ring, where Drew does get the upper hand, slams Kross down a few times. He gets him up on the ring steps, and he jumps and does a side slam onto the apron. And then finally he's able to have him down enough that Drew ends up linking up the wrist strap to him. So that then the bell rings. So on with the match. A lot of taking the strap and whipping each other with it, whipping really as hard as they possibly can. Isn't that funny? You just come from one match where we're going, now we're at now we're in the next match where they're literally whipping each other as hard as they can. And it's like, yeah, see, that's why it just makes that whole bat segment with the Liv match just like, oh my God. So they're whipping the hell out of each other with the strap. And of course, beating the hell out of each other all over the place. Smashing into the ring, and Kross ended up doing what he did on SmackDown by, getting him up on the ring post and pulling the strap and smashing him into it multiple times. Of course, they're limited to what they can do move-wise because they are linked up to this strap. So there's only so many things they can do. Because when you think about it, they don't want to actually get caught up in this strap like around the neck and hurt somebody like for real. So you kind of got to play around that and do moves that work around that. Because at the end of the day, you're trying to make sure that thing don't get tangled up in some move to where it gets on and then just messes you up. You don't want that to happen. So ultimately, Drew was getting the upper hand, and then Scarlett, out of nowhere, jumps in the ring. Drew was about to do his Claymore. Scarlett jumps in the ring, says, "Oh, no, no, no." And then he's like, "Ah, get out of my way." And he goes and he walks around her, and she turns him around. She grabs his arm, turns him around, and boom, hits him with pepper spray. Just sprays the ever-living hell out of his face in pepper spray. He's writhing around, and he falls to the mat. Of course, Cross hits the cross arm move. I forget the exact name that Cole called it, but he hits like this, the cross arm where he runs from behind with the elbow. Nails him with that, pins him, 1, 2, 3. Karrion Kross gets the victory here. Definitely the right man won. Kross needed this victory. You cannot bring him back after what they did to him before. You cannot bring him back and have him lose. This is the biggest match he's had in the company up to this point. And then I see people, complaining, "Oh my God, this match is so boring." And it's like, listen, man. First of all, it's a strap match. You're not going to get a spot monkey fest, and you're not going to get a mat fucking classic. It's a goddamn strap match, okay? You got to work around the confines of said match. So, there was story being told here, too. Oh, why does he have to cheat to win? Why does he have to cheat to win? Because he's a fucking heel. A fucking heel cheats to win. That's the goddamn point. Yeah, it's cool once in a while when the heels can get one over on them and they don't need to cheat to win. But at the end of the day, if they're constantly winning their matches normally and they're not cheating to win, please tell me how that's any different than a babyface. Because babyfaces, let's face it, like Stone Cold Steve Austin, he can be crazy and wild and shooting off at the mouth. And, well, he's just a babyface because, he's getting the wins and he's not cheating and all that stuff. Because Austin was supposed to be a heel. But, of course, because of that, he turned into a babyface. You have to have the heels being heels. They're heels for a fucking reason, okay? So Scarlett popping in there with the pepper spray is perfect. It's perfect. That's what you should expect when you have a heel who has to win by any means necessary. That's what they're going to do. The Bloodline does it all the time. I don't see anybody bitching about that, although they have been recently saying that they're getting tired of it. But for all that time, nobody's bitching about Reigns constantly having to have help to beat people. There's been a couple times where he didn't need it. But that's my point. You can do it a couple times, but you still got to remind people these are dirty asshole motherfuckers, and they're going to do whatever they want and what they need to do to win a match. It's called being a fucking heel, folks. I mean, okay? Match was, it didn't move very fast because they were just doing the heavy hitting, right? Lots of strap whipping, which is to be expected in a strap match. Once again, you're working in the confines of a strap match. People watching a strap match who, understand, they're going to want to see the strap being utilized. And it was very much utilized through the entire match. But Karrion Kross gets the victory, and by nefarious means, of course he did. Scarlett being with him, this is always going to be a thing. That's part of his act. So, if you don't like it, oh well, get over it. Karrion Kross wins. Big victory. He definitely needed it. So, next up, Bayley versus Bianca Belair for the WWE Raw Women's Championship in the first ever, I think it's the first for the women's title, the ladder match or whatever. They said it was the first, and I was trying to think, did they do it in NXT or anything? Maybe the first singles match for the title? I think so. Either way, now this was much, much better than what we had with Liv and Ronda. This was brutal. I mean, this got nasty. Now, was it perfect? No, because Bayley's kind of still... Bayley seems like she's still a little bit rusty in some areas, but it's not anything that anybody, casual is going to sit here and notice. But she looks good and everything, but there's still, I think she's still kind of like finding where she's at as far as getting her groove back. She's getting there. But Bianca Belair in this match, she kind of gave me the John Cena big match John vibes. Okay, so we got big match Bianca over here, giving me big match Bianca vibes. I mean, she was impressive. It cannot be denied. She was absolutely impressive in this match, and there's no two ways about it. Bayley did absolutely fine too. And I mean, there were some really scary spots where you thought, oh my God, I hope they're okay. Especially Bayley. There were some moments where you're like, ooh, oh my God, you know? Hopefully she's all right. I think she was bleeding at one point. It looked like blood on her face. I don't know if it was just lipstick or maybe, but it looked like blood. She was bloody at some point, I think. So, the match is going on, and one of they were using the ladders, and one of the ladders broke, so you had like a piece of ladder, just one side of a ladder. So Bayley was using that to her advantage by sticking that in the ropes and trying to hit Bianca with it, but the next time she tried to use it, Bianca reversed her, and then Bayley was trying to hold on to that ladder piece. She got her up in the KOD while Bayley was holding on to the ladder piece still, gives her the KOD, and Bayley flips over and her face comes right down on it. Now, I don't know if she actually really smashed her face, but the way she reacted afterward, it looked like it. It didn't look very comfy, I can tell you that. If it was just a sell job, she did great at selling for it. But then, of course, Damage Control comes down, tries to interfere. You think, oh my God, here we go. And I called it. Bayley's going to win this. But Damage Control tries to get involved. Bianca starts fighting them off. Bianca ends up getting both of them up, both of them at the same time, and does a double KOD on both of them. It was like, dang, and that's when you're starting to get that big match John vibes from her. And it's like, oh my God, here we go. Big match Bianca, look out. Give me the John Cena vibes. And I don't mean that in a bad way, because I know a lot of us hated John Cena with all that bullshit, and I'm one of them, trust me. I still don't like John Cena. Some people have warmed up to him now, but I'm like, nah, I don't like John Cena. Never have, well, I won't say never have. I did enjoy the Thugonomics John Cena, and then when he turned into, yay, happy Cena, no. Don't care about that John Cena. Big match John. I don't like Big match John. But when I say that about Bianca, I do not mean it in a bad way. I'm saying it in a good way, that Bianca has really proven herself to be one of the most dominant female wrestlers out there. Cannot be denied. So it ends with Bianca hits Bayley one more time. I forget how that sequence went, but she gets up the ladder, gets the title, and Bianca retains, and she is still your WWE Raw Women's Champion in a pretty damn good ladder match. Not gonna lie. Like I said, Bianca was giving me big match Bianca vibes. That John Cena vibe, for sure. But in a good way, because she's actually, she's really making me believe in it and everything that she does. So, very good. I still think Bayley needed the victory and needed the title, but maybe not yet. Maybe Triple H has different plans, and by the time we get there, I'll be like, oh, okay, But I thought she could have used it right now. That is not what happened. Bianca retains the Raw Women's Championship. And then next up, we have Finn Balor versus Edge. Finn Balor needs to win this, and there's no question about it. I said, and when I predicted who might win, I said, well, I want Finn to win, and I think the way he gets there is by mentally making Edge quit, because Edge said in his promo, you cannot physically make me say I quit. And I even said in the predictions, he said physically make me quit. And I said, well, what about mentally, doing something to Beth or something like that? And sure enough, we went there. Match started out, fairly slow paced as any, and look, Edge matches are like this, right? Edge matches are like this. He's very old school, and Finn is too. Finn's very old school as well. And quite frankly, when you're going to tell a story like they did in this match, you need to start out like that and build toward it. And they did it absolutely perfect, in my opinion. Match starts out slow. You know, they're beating the hell out of each other, doing more or less just mat wrestling moves and things in the ring, trying to get each other to submit and say, I quit. But, of course, it grows beyond that as they make their way outside the ring and they're fighting all through the crowd. Edge does this suplex to Finn on the concrete, like way out there, too. So you know there's none of those pads or mats that are usually on the floor around the ringside. It was straight on the concrete, man. And it, oh my God, I just... Anytime these guys do that, I cringe. It's just like, oh my God, it looks so painful. So hits him with the suplex out on the concrete, way out in the crowd. They're fighting all through the crowd. Edge comes back out with a hockey stick. Everybody's cheering. You know, they love the hockey stick stuff. And they're in the Flyers arena. He's smacking them with the hockey stick, and they're beating the hell out of each other all over the place. So they make their way back to the ring, and it looks like, you know, for the most part, Edge is starting to get the upper hand. While he's getting the upper hand, he has the educator applied. It's basically like a Walls of Jericho, only he's standing the opposite direction. It's cool. It's a cool move. I like how he does it. But of course, Judgment Day comes running down. Dominic comes running down. Priest gets in the ring. Edge kicks him out. So they're trying, you know, take over Edge, and they're getting the upper hand. But then Rey Mysterio comes out, and he jumps in the fray, and then ultimately he gets knocked out. For his troubles outside the ring, Dominic comes over, and for the first time since turning on Rey, attacks Rey and lays him out. Dominic gets back in the ring. Edge is standing there. Dominic's trying to like, oh, hey, man, and, you know, be all nice and say join the Judgment Day back again or whatever. Sticks out his hand to be shook, you know, and all that stuff. So Edge reaches out, shakes his hand, and nails him right between the legs. Pretty much the exact same thing that Dom did to him, right? So it looks like Edge is getting the upper hand, but then Rhea Ripley's getting involved, and next thing you know, we're seeing the crowd cheering in the background. Beth Phoenix shows up. Rhea and Beth are standing across from each other, and the reaction for that was actually really, really impressive. When Beth and Rhea were standing there before they even touched, the crowd was crazy as all hell over it. Then when they finally let loose, I mean, the place blew up. So they're going at each other. But then, Judgment Day gets the upper hand. They get Edge, and they're holding him down. Rhea had hit Beth with brass knuckles, so she's knocked out cold on the mat. They're holding Edge back. Finn's got the microphone. He's trying to force him to say, I quit. And Edge is telling him to go to hell. But then Rhea shows Edge, hey, your wife's knocked out. See how I knocked her out? Lifting her head up, and she's all, limp. Rhea goes out, gets the 2 chairs, slides one under Beth's head for the concerto. Goes to hit the concerto, and Finn's saying, say it. This is your last chance. We ain't playing. We ain't playing games. And so right before she swings, he says, I quit. Edge says, I quit. Just like I said it probably would play out. They used Beth against him to make him say I quit. But even though he said I quit, in excellent heel fashion, she goes ahead and nails her with the concerto anyway. Love it. Judgment Day. And Finn Balor. Finn Balor gets the victory over Edge in the I Quit match. Just as I said it should be. So, very happy about that. Now, meanwhile, through all this show, we've been getting these backstage segments with The Miz. The Miz wasn't in action, but we were getting backstage segments with the Flyers mascot. Can't remember the name of the Flyers mascot. Hey, man, I'm from Pittsburgh. I don't care about the Flyers, okay? So, he's like being tormented by the Flyers mascot, right? He's kind of trying to give him a shirt, and Miz is throwing it down and stomping on it, being a heel. And through all these segments, we're kind of they're trying to get you to believe that maybe it's Dexter Lumis in the costume, right? Well, eventually it gets to a point where Miz is sick of it, and he lays out the mascot. And he's, kicks him, and he starts to back away, looking at him, like, yeah, he got the upper hand on him, because everybody clearly was thinking that was probably Dexter. Well, Lumis was standing behind him, so it wasn't Dexter Lumis. Lumis was standing behind him. Of course, he attacks him, chokes him out, lays him on the ground, and then the mascot gets up and looks at Dexter and whatever, and then they walk off like they're buddies. So that was interesting. But that's how that whole backstage stuff went with that. And then finally we get Seth Rollins versus Matt Riddle in the fight pit. They make their way out to the ring. Rollins is wearing some RVD-inspired gear. Now, it's still Rollins' typical gear with, like, the vest and the pants and whatever, but it was airbrushed like RVD's artwork, how he would always have the artwork airbrushed on his gear. So, and he even did the RVD and all that good stuff. So he gets in the ring, and then Matt Riddle comes out. He gets in the ring, and the fight pit comes down. Daniel Cormier is out there to officiate the match. Match starts to go down. Got some typical, wrestling going on here. But then it gets to a point where Matt actually hit, I don't know if it was by accident. I mean, it looked like it was, but he was doing it so recklessly that he hit Daniel Cormier. So Cormier takes him and he throws him down and he picks him up and he says, "Hey, you ain't in here to fight me. You got to fight him. Don't touch me again." So, and then they continue wrestling, him and Seth. Then Seth ends up doing it too. He ends up hitting or pushing Daniel Cormier, and then Cormier does the same thing to Seth. He grabs him, he throws him up and things. He says, "Hey, you're going to fight me. Now don't touch me again." So they made sure not to touch him through the rest of the match. He wasn't going to take none of that crap. And so the match went on. They're doing some classic, typical wrestling here in the ring. And then they start using the cage, smashing each other off of it. Seth Rollins' inexperience in the fight pit shows for one moment, because as he's thrown, he actually goes back like he's going to reach to bounce off the ropes, No ropes there. It's a fight pit. And he hits the cage, and he's like, oh yeah, no ropes. So that, shows his inexperience in the fight pit. So they're smashing each other around. They end up going up on the top platform, because there's a platform around the pit that's on the top of it. They go up there, and they're doing moves up there, and every single step they take, I'm like, oh my God. Because it looks like they're going to fall off the ledge with every move they do. Especially when Riddle hit him with an RKO up there. Rollins hit him with a pedigree up there, and I'm just like, my God. But anyway, when Riddle hit him with the RKO, Rollins did slide down off the ledge, and he kind of used his hand to stop him from falling, hard. So he did end up getting down out of there, and then he's laying on the mat. And Riddle, I thought he was going to do a floating bro. Michael Cole apparently thought so too, because he didn't know what the hell he was talking about. So he ends up doing the Broton off of the ledge of the top of the fight pit. And he came down so hard, man. It looked painful for both guys. Like Riddle was, he actually sounded like he was in actual real pain. Like no joke, really like bad. Unless he was just, I don't know. I don't know if that was all just selling. That had to hurt. That absolutely had to hurt with as hard as it looked like they came down. He came down on him. And Rollins, he was like, you can tell, like, when they're doing the typical sell and when it's like, uh-oh, they may have actually gotten hurt here. It looked like that because it looked rough. It looked stiff. Not much you can do when you're going to do a move like that. It's to be expected, but he just looked like he came down harder than normal. Of course, we end with Riddle getting Rollins in the submission. He's got him around the neck with his legs, and so Rollins picks him up and power bombs him like into the cage, and then picks him up again and does another one into the cage. But Riddle ain't letting go of this submission. He's not letting go. And so they fall to the mat, and Riddle's really wrenching it in. Rollins has no choice. He taps out. Matt Riddle wins the fight pit. A victory for Matt Riddle. I figured Seth Rollins would get this victory, but it is a victory for Matt Riddle. And once again, we have Seth Rollins laying on his back. All right. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think he's going to get his time. But right now, what he's doing is being, one of the best wrestlers in the industry. So yeah, that's it. Matt Riddle gets the victory in the fight pit. Everybody was able to stand up and walk out on their own two legs. The match wasn't super crazy. Oh my God. But it was pretty good. It was still a good match. It was a solid match, and it was a stiff match for the most part, right? Rollins did at one point climb the cage, and he climbed up to the top, and he did the Seth freaking Rollins like he's RVD, and then and like while he's up there, he literally jumps midair, turns, frog splash onto Riddle. That was pretty cool. And you know what? I kind of like that. Seth freaking Rollins. That was pretty cool. I love RVD, but I thought that was a nice little callback to RVD there. So they're getting out of the fight pit. They're exiting the fight pit. Okay. Mind you, at the beginning of the show, they were teasing the White Rabbit. They showed the video game style 8-bit graphics at the beginning with the rabbit going down the X hole, down the rabbit hole, and all that stuff, and the flame shooting out. So they were teasing that pretty good at the beginning of the show, especially on the kickoff show and at the beginning of the actual pay-per-view premium live event. So Riddle and Rollins, we haven't seen anything about the White Rabbit this whole time. And Riddle and Rollins get out of the ring. They're walking away. And the copyright thing pops up in the corner of the screen. And most people are like, what in the hell are you doing? We're going off the air? That's it? Don't even get the White Rabbit? But if anybody's watched NXT, Black and Gold NXT, run by Triple H, this is a Triple H classic move to put the copyright up. Oh, you think it's over, but it isn't. And that's exactly what happened here. As Riddle's backing away, celebrating, the lights go out. All the people in the arena pull out their fireflies, right? And then we start to hear he's got the whole world in his hands being sung through the PA system. He's got the whole wide world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. You know, he's kind of singing it slow and creepy like that. And while this is happening, we pan away into a wide shot of the arena and then zoom in on certain spots of the arena where we zoom in, we see a human version of Huskus the Pig Boy. We zoom in, we see a human version of Mercy the Buzzard. And then we see a human version of Ramblin' Rabbit. And then, of course, Abby the Witch. And then, mind you, these are like humans with the masks that look like they're in like full costume, looking like human versions of the puppets, right? Then we see Michael Cole and Corey Graves sitting at the announce table, and all of a sudden they like freak out because something's sitting on the like laying on the announce table. It looks like a head sitting there. Michael Cole's gone. He's like, I'm getting the hell out of here. Corey Graves just kind of backs away slowly, all creepily. And when I saw what it was, I knew exactly what it was, folks, because I have what it was right here. That's what it was. The burnt fiend mask was what was laying on the table there. That's what was laying on the table, on the announce table, that freaked out Cole and Graves. Knew it right away, because obviously I have it. So there you go. That's what was laying on the table. And then we go to another shot in the crowd where we see the Fiend. And, of course, everybody's, like, freaking out. Oh, my God, there he is. I knew it wasn't him. Not just based on the body type, but it just didn't seem like that would be the way that he would do that. You know what I mean? Like, that just doesn't seem like that's how he would do it. Obviously, he likes to throw little monkey wrenches into how things would normally work, right? So, just looking at him, I could tell it wasn't him, but there was a Fiend in the crowd, fully in the full Fiend costume, okay? And then we pan over to the stage, and we see that there is a door. And the door has kind of a bit of flickering light coming out of it. We pan up to the Titantron, and we start to see the Firefly Funhouse, only it's a dilapidated Firefly Funhouse. Like, it hasn't clearly been lived in for a long time. The last time we've seen him in the Funhouse was a year and a half ago. So the Funhouse has been unlived in for a year and a half, right? The landlord must have came and kicked him out. But it's all cobwebs and the puppets are like dead. You see Huskus, he's laying there on the TV dead. Abby's dead in the window. Mercy's hanging over his box dead. The Firefly Funhouse song is playing, but it's all glitched out and wobbly and like a damn warped vinyl record would be. But then we have the TV, and what's funny is I don't know if the TV ever turned on before in the Funhouse. Somebody can tell me down below if it has, but I don't recall it ever turning on. It turns on. The TV turns on. And we get flickering images, and we start to see this weird face, this mask that we've never seen before. And the voice says, "Who killed the world? You did." Ha 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 ha. We did. And then it disappears. Then we pan back down to the door that we're looking at. The light really starts to shine through the door now. The door kicks open. The light is really bright and blue. And at this point, I'm thinking, interesting, because Luke Harper, Brody Lee, in AEW, when he had made his debut or entrance, I can't remember which, he had that blue light coming out from behind him, like really shining behind him, right? And I just thought, oh, maybe that's like, maybe that's just a little tidbit in there for him, which is wonderful. And then the blue light kind of fades away. And what's funny is when the blue light fades away and nothing happens, the crowd's starting to go boo, and they're getting all angry, right? They didn't have to wait long, though, because the lantern started coming out the door. We saw a lantern. And, of course, as the person comes out, we reveal that that mask we saw glitching in the TV in the funhouse, this person is wearing that mask. And it's super cool looking, man. Obviously made by Jason Baker and Tom Savini at Coliseum Studios right here in Pittsburgh. Absolutely proud to say that all this cool stuff comes right out of here, my home city. And, of course, it's inspired by a movie they actually worked on not too long ago, which was The Black Phone. And it also has some Vincent Price vibes to it as well. There's a couple little different things they kind of worked into the design. That's what I get out of it. That's what it looks like to me. That's the vibes it gives me. And so it's got that vibe. Holding the lantern. The lantern is not the same as before, because instead of the normal light, we have a very blue looking light in this lantern. The lantern is giving off the same kind of blue light that came out of the head lantern that he had as the Fiend. So different lantern, still the same kind of structure of the old lantern, but now we have a very bright blue light coming out of it. So that's different. So he's holding it there. He reaches over and he pulls off the mask to reveal that it is in fact Bray Wyatt. He has returned, and man, he didn't even pull the mask off yet, and people were like going crazy. I mean, dude, even when the lights went out, before he even came out, before anything even happened, the crowd was going absolutely insane. But when he came out, when they saw that lantern, it went absolutely ape shit in that place. And then when he pulled off the mask, the roof went right off. It flew down the street, landed in the city somewhere. It was absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy, the reaction. The place exploded. You just don't hear it very often. And when you do, you know it's something special. This was by far one of the most epic returns in the history of wrestling. In the history of wrestling, okay? Not just WWE, but in the history of wrestling as a whole. This is by far one of the most epic returns ever. Ever. Okay? When Punk returned to AEW, that was on a similar level. But I really feel like the crowd in Philly blew the roof off the place maybe more than they did for Punk in Chicago. That's just my opinion. It was pretty up. It's right there. It's right there. I mean, at least one of them isn't a fucking crybaby bitch, right? And gets himself suspended and does all this kind of... never mind. But that's neither here nor there. The fact of the matter is Bray Wyatt is back. And also, people are saying, oh, it's the Eater of Worlds, Bray Wyatt. I don't think so, folks. I don't think so, okay? It may be like a hybrid of that mixed with something new, mixed with something from the past and things like this. And the reason I say that is because one of the images where he's standing there after he's taken the mask off and right before he's about to blow out the lantern, right? There's an image, and if you brighten up the image, you get a really nice, clean, clear look at how he looks now, how he has presented himself now, right? He does have the one glove on with the thumb, like the Eater of Worlds Bray. However, the way he's dressed and like the nice, he's got like a jacket on with the sleeves rolled up that's actually like a nice looking kind of, I don't know what material it would be, but it's a nice looking jacket, right? And he's got his hair the way it is, and he's got some new piercings and whatever. And he looks really cleaned up, okay? So when I think of cult leader Bray, I think of like that dirty swamp man guy, right? When I see this Bray, I do not see the dirty swamp man guy at all. This is like a cleaned up, more calculated human being right here, okay? It's different. So I'm thinking it's a little bit of, the past mixed with the present and whatever he's going to do in the future. That's where I think we're at right now with that. But yes, it's just absolutely incredible. Finally, Bray Wyatt is back. I couldn't be happier. And social media is going ape shit over it. It's just wonderful. It's wonderful to see. It's a wonderful thing to see after all this time, all the false hope that, well, quite frankly, the fans gave themselves. Finally, he's back, and he started planting seeds about what he was going to do back in July. Isn't that crazy? Like, he knew what he wanted to do. And when he finally did get around to returning, he was going to do this. This is what he was going to do. So I find it very interesting, and I'm just super happy, man. Bray Wyatt's back. It's awesome. Cannot wait for Monday to see what happens. Obviously, he's going to have a lot to say. I hope he has something to say. I can't imagine why he wouldn't have anything to say. I think that's part of this whole new gimmick, too, where, he loves masks and stuff like that. And I think with The Fiend, he wasn't really able to go out and cut promos in the ring. Of course, he could do that as Funhouse Bray. But for the most part, Funhouse Bray is kind of confined to the Funhouse most of the time, right? Well, with The Fiend, he couldn't cut a promo. Now, this way, even if he's out there, just for a match or whatever is going to happen, at least this way now with the new mask, he can easily remove the new mask, when he gets in the ring and still cut promos and things like that. So that's obviously going to be an advantage. Yeah, couldn't sleep last night. Mind's racing a mile a minute, just thinking about what is he going to say on Monday. And once again, we know it's Bray Wyatt, but there's still more questions than answers. And that's great because that makes you want to tune in. It makes you want to say, oh, man, what's going to happen, So I'm super excited about it. Super excited about it. I thought the pay-per-view was perfectly fine, worked, had its ups and downs, but overall, a really good show with an absolutely epic return by Bray Wyatt to the WWE. The only place he was going to come back to, folks. He wasn't going anywhere else. Now, if you ask me, if we want to talk about what he's going to do, if you said you wanted him to go and be the one to take down Roman Reigns, I'm not going to be mad at it. I'm not going to argue with you because after the reaction he got last night, I could totally see that being the way to go, and especially with how he's changed up into this new, approach of his gimmick and everything. I think it could work a lot better than The Fiend did against Roman. And Roman's kicking him when he's down and saying he's just a freak in a mask and all this stuff, right? When he took the Universal title from him, which is, when Roman won the Universal title and has held it ever since. So there's built-in story there already right away. And with him looking more cleaned up and very much more calculated, and he's got this new vibe about him, I could totally see that being the move. Cody Rhodes is still the top of the list, and I certainly don't understand why you would have titles on the line against The Rock. That makes no sense. The Rock's not going to win the title and stick around. And Cody Rhodes makes a lot of sense too, but after the reaction Bray got, I could see it being like another Daniel Bryan situation where maybe they're moving toward Cody Rhodes, but the crowd's like, nah, you're giving Bray what he deserves. I could totally see that happening, and if you are on that team of wanting that, I'm not going to argue with you. I personally would still go Cody, and then maybe down the line Bray can take it from Cody and or something along those lines. But if you're telling me you think it should be the other way, I'm not going to argue that at all, especially after seeing his presentation, the crowd reaction. I totally could see him being the one to finally, knock down Roman Reigns. And the other tidbit is now news is coming out that Bo Dallas may be coming back to the WWE as well, which makes me wonder, what if he's part of, a new Wyatt faction or family or whatever you want to call it, which he always should have been. But what if he is this time? That's just going to add a whole nother layer. Now, Bo comes back and does whatever he wants. That's fine, too. But, yeah, word going around right now is that Bo Dallas is going to be coming back to the WWE. So keep that in mind as well. So, yeah, that's it, folks. That's all I got for you. Bray Wyatt has returned. Extreme Rules was a good show. And that's pretty much all I got to say about that. I'll catch you all down the road.